Hey there, JD speaking. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and please hit like and please contact me if you need any help with your watches. So I've got this cross ball-like pocket watch, and ball-like meaning it's got two halves that look like this, and it's a clock. So it's fundamentally a pocket watch movement within a clock, but it's a big movement. I couldn't actually clean this in my cleaning machine because it was way too big, so too much diameter here. And if you saw my last video, I did oil the upper part of this. So what I want to do is just populate the gears and wheels in here. I did go through the watch cleaning machine here, and I have cleaned most of the parts with the exception of the main plate. That was impossible to get into these cages. And these are Nicholas cages, by the way. Oh my God, stop it. Groner Central. So, and here are the parts. So I want to be able to reassemble this thing. So it's you got to be very careful when you do this. You got to make sure that you set the parts nicely onto your mat so that you don't get them disorganized. I'm going to switch glasses right now. Because I want to basically build up I'll call it a pocket watch, but I want to build up the pocket watch to the point where I can deal with the balance, like install the balance and get this thing clicking. So when I put the parts down on my mat, as you can see, there's my mat. I'll put the parts down on my mat that have been through the cleaning machine, and I've grouped up the screws. Move this out of the way. I grouped up the screws with the plates, because in some of these old watches, the screws are different. Like they're not necessarily the same screw. I think in this particular watch, there was one stripped screw, and I mentioned that in one of my videos. So there's one screw that was stripped. There's another one here, and there's another screw that goes with it. And I've got to figure out how to address that stripped screw in the plate. There's a few things I can do. If I can find a replacement screw that's got a bit more heft to it, I'll do that. If I can't, then I need to somehow reduce the screw hole size. I've seen that done before, and in fact, in the plate that I'm looking at right now, hang on, let me grab this screw here. In the plate I'm looking at here, I saw one dent here. So if you look at these dents right there, it looks like a watchmaker pounded this to try to reduce the hole size. This is what it looks like, but I think that was done during manufacturing. I don't think that was done by a watchmaker that was repairing it. So anyway, so I'm dumping all this stuff off. I'm dumping it kind of far away because I I have a meeting where I've got to use a laptop in about 40 minutes. So I want to make sure that I don't squish any of these parts with my laptop. That wouldn't be good. Or I can just have my meeting somewhere else. So these are the little tiny baskets that I use that are good for small parts. And I use these because the cage crossing diameters, and I just dump those out. Don't try to pick them up because you could bend something. But the cage diameters are a lot smaller, so I'm not concerned about losing a screw or parts falling down through the bottom of the cage and maybe hitting something else and getting damaged. I was in a watch group meeting a few minutes ago, and one of the guys in the meeting said that he had a jewel crack when he went into the cleaning machine, and I don't think I've ever had that problem, but it might have been that part got hit by some other part next to it. So I try to make sure the parts are grouped so that there is no chance of a bigger part smashing a smaller part. That's why I put them in individual boxes like this, because I don't want these parts here interfering with maybe the escapement wheel or something like that, and perhaps destroying the feet of the escapement wheel. So that is that's why I use these small baskets here, and we'll continue to use them. Now for this particular pocket watch, the mainspring is sort of on the edge of needing to be replaced. It's kind of on the edge. And let me try to I'm going to grab this with my tweezers, but I'm probably going to end up handling it. Now you see the size of this mainspring? It's pretty big, right? Let me just move my camera in a bit, a little interactive, very poorly scripted camera stuff. So there's the mainspring there. And I'm going to hand put that back into the barrel. That's nice and clean now. But before I do that, I'll put a little bit of oil in the barrel, and just to make sure I've got nice smooth contact. And I've got to make sure I wind that mainspring in the right direction, right? So, and what I want to do first is just go through the barrel with Rodico quickly, just to make sure that there's nothing in there that could interfere with anything. So I can see the hook. I can see the hook in the barrel there. So I know that the mainspring that's going to hook that barrel has got to go in. It's got to go in this way, because I can see the hook on the mainspring itself, right? So the mainspring has to be put in this way, so I can put that in by hand. I cannot wear gloves putting in a mainspring. I'm not sure if there's anybody else that has success in hand winding a mainspring with gloves on. I've got 3 or 4 mainspring winders, and none of them will work on winding these mainsprings. Well, this one, they might work for this one, but they'd be too tight because it's such a big mainspring. So there's the plate, nice and clean. I'll just move that out of the way. There's the arbor. So the arbor goes one way or the other, and if I look at the arbor, I can see the fat side of the arbor and the fat side of the, like that. So it's going to go in like this. So I'm just going to put a little bit of oil on the, and I'm going to use the 1300 oil. And I'm just going to put that on the edge here. And this is just to further reduce friction, because watches and pocket watches, how well they operate, has to do with how much friction that they have. And so if you're trying to get the gears to turn freely, you want to make sure that the watch or pocket watch is pretty much friction free. Now you don't need to over oil things. You need to put a little bit of oil on there, and that'll spread nicely. If you over oil, what happens is the watch ends up, the oil will migrate to other areas of the watch, and then you've got other problems. So everything is out of the baskets, so I can put the baskets together and out of the way. I'll just drop those baskets back into the holder here. I've got 2 basket holders, and as I said in the meeting today, watchmaking group, that I will clean a watch and I'll usually leave it set overnight, so I know everything is absolutely dry, so I don't have any issues. So I don't need to put the arbor in until I've wound the mainspring in. So I'm going to hand wind the mainspring. I'm going to let you watch me fumble my way through hand winding this. Shouldn't be super difficult, but you can start on the edge here. I'm not as concerned about this because of the way this hook hooks in. If I manage to miss the hook on the side, when it slides around, it'll hook it the next time. So the T ones are the most difficult. So here I just have to turn this in like that for the first hoop, and then make sure the next one is inside of that, right? So it doesn't get caught up, and just walk my way through, walk my way around. I guess if I had the camera the other way, it might work better. So if I just turn this camera around like this, you can see it a bit better. So this is hand winding it. So you're grabbing it. And again, I don't know anybody that can do this with gloves on. I guess I could try, but it just doesn't work, because the glove material just gathers up with the metal edge. So it doesn't work very well. So there you go. So I'm doing it by hand, winding it in, trying to keep pressure with my thumb going down. I cut my guitar fingernails the other day, and they're actually really handy for watchmaking. So I just push it around and grab the base and push it up, and grab the top, push it down, grab the base, push it up, and just keep going until the coils end up inside of the watch. So it's pretty much like that. So there it is, wound in. And you want to make sure that it's flat. To do that, you can actually grab a stake or something and push it down. Let me show you. I'll just grab a stake really quick and then show you. So here I've got a stake that's relatively flat. If you look at that, it's basically flat. So the opening here is to allow the jewel to sit in when you're punching in a roller table. But so I've got a stake that's relatively flat, and I'll take one of my hammers here, and I don't need to hit this hard. I don't want to hit it hard. And this is like a watchmaker's hammer, but I can just put it on the edge right there, like that, and just tap down. And I just want to make sure that the mainspring is in all the way. And I'll look at it on the edge, I can see it's pretty much in. But if I just tap it a bit, then I know I won't have a problem, right? If the mainspring is out too far, then you're not going to be able to put the cap on the barrel. So this is what you want. And if I look at that, I think I've got no issue with respect to the cap going on. So the next thing is to put the arbor in. And I actually don't want to touch the arbor, but I may have to. I'm looking at the arbor, which way it goes. In this one here, it's pretty easy. There's a fat side and a thin side, but you can also look at the hook and which way the hook goes in. And you're going to have one of these little blocks here because you're going to want to integrate this arbor in like that. You can pick it up with your hands and kind of get it in that way. And again, I find it difficult to do this with a glove. But I don't think there's an issue. So I can do this like that, and I can roll it in. See if I can do that to this point here. There we go. And then I'll get a big screwdriver, or a bigger screwdriver, depends on the size of the arbor, and just push it in and rotate it a bit until the pin gets past, the hook gets past. So there it is there. Now I want to make sure that that's hooked in. And what you do there, you put that down into the hole so it's not flat. I put the needle upside down that I had in here because I kept poking myself. But here, if this works, I can grab the arbor from the back. See how much real estate I have to do that. So I can grab the arbor from the back. Come on, arbor. Don't cause me issues. Well, I'll close it at this level here is probably fine. So grab the arbor, and all I want to do is turn this like this to make sure it has grabbed the arbor. And this has. So you've got no problem there. It looks like it's grabbed the arbor. You've got no problem. Or the hook, I should say, on the arbor. And then I just have to take that out. Hopefully it doesn't fall. There we go. Trying to be very careful with all this. And there it is. So there is it's on right now. And now I want to put the cap on the barrel. But before I put the cap on the barrel, I put the lime and the coconut. I want to take a little bit of oil here. And the oil I'm using for this, again is HP 1300. So I want to put it right on the arbor. And I'll put it on two sides of the arbor, and that will spread without a problem. Like that, and like that. And then this cap here goes down onto the part. So it's going to basically go, I just dropped it, like this. So now I know that this thing has been finangled a few times. Sometimes you actually have to mark where this thing was because you want to put it back where it was. Otherwise, you may have a hard time fitting it. It might not actually fit. So I'm just praying a bit that if I put it down right here, am I going to get a good fit? So I can push this down with my fingers like this, but I know I've got to grab it and just give it a little bit of pressure to see if I can push this in. There we go. That's in there, that's in there. And you take your tweezers and use your tweezers to push the body down like that. And this has to be absolutely flat. So I'm pushing that down, and it looks like I've succeeded in making it flat. So that's in there, and it's flat. Yeah, that looks really good. So that's perfect. And now the final thing I want to do is put my glove on. And then I'm going to do the Bugs Bunny again here with my glove. And I want to roll the gears with Rodico. So get rid of my hammer. And I want to take these gears here and I want to roll them with Rodico. So I want to take the teeth here and just roll them. And this is to make sure that whatever perhaps was in the watchmaking lab here didn't get in between the teeth. You can get the whole watch can stop if you get dirt in the teeth of the gear. And this is effectively the first gear of the watch, the mainspring barrel. It's considered 1. The center wheel is considered 2. So that's 1. So now I've got this cleaned. I still don't know the sequence of sequence to install, but I'm just going to throw it in for now. But this would go into the plate. So this would go in like this. I've already oiled this, but I'm not sure if there's a gear that goes below that. Probably not. So I'll just put it in for now. And there we go. So that gear is now in place in the plate. So, and it's spinning. So that gear goes in there, and then usually the center wheel arbor goes in next. But I may have a sequence to put this in. So I got to look at a picture to see which sequence I install this in. Now I also want to roll the wheel as well, the center wheel. I'm going to roll the center wheel to make sure there's no dust or dirt in the center wheel that could cause the wheel to stop. You can look at this under a microscope as well, but you can roll it, and then you can roll the pinion as well, just in case there's something in there too. It's always a good idea. This is a big, basically, like I said, it's a giant pocket watch. It's like the Goliath pocket watch. So this wheel then would go in, likely, I'm thinking face down here, because the face would be on the other side. So this would go in like this, but I'm pretty sure, and if you can see that, that's how that works. But I'm pretty sure that I've got to get these other components in first before I put my center wheel in. So as you can see in this picture, you've got the center wheel, but the intermediate wheel is on top of the center wheel, so it has to go in first. I just touched something. And then this wheel, which is the fourth wheel, actually has to go in before the center wheel. And this wheel here is the escapement wheel, and I've got to figure out when. I think that has to go in before the fourth wheel. So I've got to work my way through. So basically, I want to test I want to run the train, as they say, with the wheels. So I don't want to put in the pallet fork until the end. So I'll put them in the right sequence and see what happens. So if I look at the sequence of events, can't put that wheel in first. I've got to put the escapement wheel in first. So I got to grab that escapement wheel. I've got too much camera crap here. And it looks like the pinion for the escapement wheel, that pinion there is on the bottom, which means the fourth wheel goes in before the escapement wheel goes in. So I've got to find the fourth wheel. Where are you, fourth wheel? This can't be you. Let me think. Is this the fourth wheel? Let me see. That does not look like the fourth wheel. That looks like the intermediate wheel. This looks like it could be the fourth wheel with a giant pinion. Pinion from hell. So this fourth wheel would go in here. I'm doing this with the wrong hand. It's funny, I'm left-handed, but I basically do all the fine work with my right hand. So there's the fourth wheel in there, and then the escapement wheel goes on top of that because there's a pinion that needs to interact with it, right? So I gotta go down here. So if you see me missing from the top, that's what's happening. All right, so the escapement is now in. I believe that goes like that. So it's the only way that the pinion will interact correctly with that. So then the next wheel, the fourth wheel is already in. The next wheel is the intermediate wheel, but I can't put that in until I put the center wheel down, because the center wheel goes in first, like that. And then the intermediate wheel, I got the wrong hand here, but the intermediate wheel goes in like this, and that's the third wheel. Like that. So there we go. So now all the wheels are in place, and there's plates that need to be put in. So if you look at the picture here, you can see the plates that need to be put in. So there's a very small kind of a finger plate that needs to be put in for the escapement wheel, and then that's followed by other plates. I'm going to move the camera around so I can get some agility in what I'm doing. This is for the picture. All right, I've double gloved myself because I do need to hold these plates here while I'm doing this. So this plate should go in right here. And again, the agility is not the same when you've got gloves on. I don't care who you are. So that goes in like that. And that, I gotta make sure I get the right screw in here. That, I just need to rotate this a bit because I want this to fit in perfectly. And I need to get down and dirty. So I may want to turn off my camera so I can actually focus on this and not screw this up. So there we go. So I'll just put that kind of in the center here. Get that plate out of the way, get my elbows free. Yeah, so what I want to do here is make sure that the pinion for the escapement wheel is sitting nicely where it needs to sit. There we go. So I put a little tiny bit of pressure on that plate with my finger and then lower that pinion. And now I'm going to get out my Bergeron 7010 Bergeron. I always say Bergeron, but Bergeron 7010 tool, which is this tool here. And that just helps me hold things down while I put the screw in. So this is kind of making sure that the plate doesn't hop up while I'm trying to put the screw in. So that's down now, and I can put this screw in now. And I think that's as far as it goes. So that plate's in. And now I've got this plate here, which based on the angles likely goes here. I think it does anyway. I think it does. So if I lower that again, like I said before, just lower that plate in here. Just like that. And I want to make sure that the pinion for that is actually through the jewel hole. And it's not, so I need to put a little bit of pressure, a little downward pressure on the end here, and just shift that gear a little bit. There we go. So Now I can see it sticking through, and I will again keep a little bit of pressure down here to make sure this doesn't jump up, and then grab the screw and before I tighten it, I do want to make sure I see that pivot on the other end. Otherwise, I could be asking for trouble. Yeah, I do. So there's the pivot. So now I can tighten that screw, so that's 2 plates down. And then the next plate, I believe, is the big one. And what we're going to do is, if you look at that plate there, the next one is that long plate. And I can put that one in. I've got the time. So I want to put this one in. And this one, I think there should be a screw for this one. That should have been in the cleaning machine, but the screw I might have, no, I think I took the 2 screws and didn't put them in the cleaning machine. So this plate goes all the way across both sides, like that. So it goes in like this, and both of these gears then fit in there. I believe I can see the pivot of both those gears. Oh, it's just sprung out on me now, so that didn't work. It should have worked, but it didn't. Alright, so there we go. So it's in now, and I'm fearing that it might pop out, so I need to kind of move quickly. And I have the 3 screws for that. And one is longer than the other, and the other one's shorter. So I'm going to make the assumption here that the shorter one goes in here. Actually, I think it might be the longer one that goes in there. But I can fix it later, I think. So we'll put that in like that. Yeah, I still have movement, which is great. And then this one here goes in this side here, and I don't want to lose the pressure on this because I don't want this to pop out. So that's good. Let me put a little bit of pressure on here. A little power here. Just want to make sure everything moves, and it does. There we go. So that's that. So the next thing I want to do is put this plate in. And the problem with this plate is that one of the screws is stripped. So I put this through the wash machine. And I'm trying to remember this one here. See, I marked that with a black mark. So when this goes in like that, that screw is the one that I've got issues with. So I'm going to address that issue with the screw. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is cut out because I've got a meeting to go to. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. The darn meeting moved, so I'm back. So anyway, we're going to keep assembling this watch, which means I got to put my glove back on, at least one of my two gloves, right? So I can make sure I don't get any human sweat, even though my hands are very clean. So there we go. So now we're going to put on the main plate here, and I'm going to try the screws and see what happens. But before I do that, I need to put some of the gears in, and I may need Rodico to hold these in place. So I've got 2 gears I've got to put in. Which means I might need a stem as well to do this, because the stem is kind of critical for putting these gears in. I've got this gear here, which I believe goes the other way. Let me look at this gear here. I didn't take a picture of these darn gears, but I should know how they go. So there's one gear and there's the other gear, and I can tell that this gear interacts with this gear like that. So you can see the way it's interacting there. And I know that this gear goes in here, and then this gear goes beside it, and the groove fits in where that bar is. So what I need to do is I need to get I think I may need to put Rodico in the bottom. I've done this before, and it kind of helps if you just put a slice of Rodico on the bottom right here. That's going to catch some of the gears that need to go down. It may push them down, but it's going to catch them too. So, and because the stem is so darn long, it makes everything that much more difficult. So the stem would sit like that there, and the gears would go like this. So there's one gear like that, and then the other gear goes in next to it, like that, kind of like that. So, and I know that this spring in the middle goes on top of that gear. So I may Rodico the front, which makes it all that more difficult. So it's a little trickier than the pocket or a normal pocket watch, but so be it, right? It can only go this far, so there, about like that. But that bar needs to come over. So that's the bar, that's this bar right here. That's on that spring. So I can likely just push that over with my like that. That's the way it goes right there. The problem is assembling this. Yeah, things just tend to fall out unless you assemble it upside down, which is impossible. So I'm just going to put the Rodico back here, because there's no other way of getting that in but without having something for it to press on. So I'm just going to try this again. These two gears kind of go beside each other. I know this is just going to piss me off. There we go. It sounds like my impression of Jack Nicholson. You know, you're starting to piss me off. Sort of goes in like that, but the problem with this is the stem is so big that I can't leave the stem, and I don't believe I can leave the stem in while I'm doing this, because everything will just push straight up. So unless I just hold it there while I'm placing this down, I'll try that. I'll see if that kind of works. Alright, so that's all the way in both sides, and the gear is in here, and it shouldn't go anywhere, but I still need to press that gear the other way. So I'm going to put in a couple of screws here, because I know the screw that's bad is on this side. So I'm going to see if I can get this thing kind of settled in with 2 screws. There's one, and this is a short screw, so I'm going to use a short screw right here, thinking that maybe the stripped one was should have been a long one, and if I can flip those screws, maybe I've got a solution. No, that's just turning. So that is probably the bad screw because it's too darn short. And this one probably will work in the hole that I thought was bad. But it might be good. It's always an adventure when you're working with old watches. Ye old watches. So that's screwing in now without a problem. Which means I've got to find another screw for this hole here. Use Rodico to pop it up and then grab it with my tweezers. There we go. Put that in there. All right. So that's in now like that. But if I look at the other side, yeah, it just all fell out on me. But I can flip that around the other way now. And just maybe put that on the ground. Yeah. So there we go. Now I don't know why this thing is sticking up. I don't like that. Oh, I know why it's sticking up, because that screw here is too long. So it's pushing up on the other side, which is not good. So let me just loosen that. Loosen that screw, because that's why that screw is short. Because if it's too long, it pushes up on the spring here. Right? So that actually pushed up on the spring. This is all a big pain in the butt, reassembling this. And the ring came off. So this ring, I think, was over this. So we'll put that back in a second. And then that came out. I'm going to start swearing any second now. I think there's time for a drink of coffee. So now I got to have a drink of coffee before I kill somebody. There we go. All right, getting back at this. I'm just going to lay this down and bring the camera in. Getting back at this, I believe, and I can probably use the stem a little bit here, but this has to go in first, like this. These motion works are a big pain in the ass, I'm telling you. And this goes in like this, like that. And I'm just going to put the stem all the way through here. Come on. And then I'm going to see if I can move this into the slot. But I know the stem's not in properly, so if I move that back a bit and then push this forward, it's extremely painful. There we go. So that should be a line there, but that's got to fit into the slot when the stem goes in. There we go. So now that's in place. That's the way that should be riding. Just like that. And now I got to flip this around the other way. Let me think here. I want this stem to stay where it is. So let me just flip this around like this. And I'm going to maybe put a piece of Rodico on here so the stem doesn't move. I got a lot of Rodico going on here, but I'm just going to squeeze some Rodico right in here to prevent the stem from moving. And that screw right there goes down into the groove in the stem to keep it in place. So I've only got one screw holding the plate. The smaller screw is supposed to go in here, and the larger one in here. So I'll put the larger one in now. But the smaller one really isn't working. But I know why it's that size now. So let me just flip the camera around. Alright, I got the stem in now. And I dropped the two gears in there, and I was able to, I didn't think I recorded it, but I flipped it around, and there's an arm that goes into the groove right there, and I made sure that that was in place. And now I want to make sure that this is down in here, because I believe that goes right there. And there's a little bit of a groove in that too, I think. Yeah, there is. Oh my God, everything has got a groove in it. It's so groovy. It may actually go in the other way. It might go in this way. And it does. So it goes in that way. And now I'm just trying to figure out what goes where. Now the ratchet wheel should be on here, right? And that is this wheel right here. No, I got something wrong here. I need the plate wheel, the bigger plate wheel, which is this wheel right here. I'm going to turn off my camera so you can see better. So this wheel goes on here like that. And I got to make sure the up is up and the down is down here. So I believe it would go like this. Yeah, this makes sense. And the click goes out of the way, and then on top of this goes this. And what's funny is that this is threaded, and I believe it's beveled that way, so it's threaded, which is kind of weird. I don't think I've ever seen a threaded arbor before. There it is. And I'm not tightening everything down yet because I don't trust myself. So now the and that is the, I believe it's the ratchet wheel, or the ratchet wheel. This goes on here, but it goes on, it's beveled as well, so it likely goes on first. Oh no, it's beveled, so it would go on this way. Let me see. Let me look here. Yeah, there are marks on the inside of this. So, trying to look and see what the bevel is on this thing. Hard to tell. So if I put it in like this, like that, and then I take this, I think it was just a style thing. I put this on top like that, And then this screw goes in like this. That should all work. Just hang on. Change screwdrivers. It always almost feels like it's going in, and then it doesn't. I think this is the right screw for this. Just looking down at all my screws, and there's only 2 left. So one of them needs to be, well, I got the balanced ones in there. So let me try this again. All right, I'm going to move this out of the way and look at this screw hole here. It might be the smaller screw that goes in here. And I have to find a home for this one. Yeah, that is not fitting in there, so it's not this screw. It's another one. It's a different one. You don't want to be 1 screw short of load here, so it's got to be this screw right here. Let me see if I can line this one up and screw that one down. I'm hoping. I am hoping. Oh, I forgot one thing, that this actually screws in backwards. So that might be my problem. I'm going to go back to the original screw here and try screwing that in backwards, because it actually goes in the other way. I might throw down a piece of Rodigo as well to keep this fucking plate in the right place. Sorry about the swearing. But, Jesus, Murphy. I apologize to Simon for dropping an F-bomb, but I'm telling you, these things are a pain in the butt. Especially putting motion works together. They never seem to want to go where they're supposed to go. All right, try it again. And you get to watch the struggles of watchmaking. And I've been doing this for many years, so it's not like I'm a junior. What I didn't remember, though, is that this goes in backwards. There we go. Done. So had I remembered that, life would have been a lot easier. So there we go. So that's done. Now when I put a little bit of wind on this, and it's running the train. So that's working really well. See how it stops? It stops perfectly. And I'll do that again. And there we go. So that's running the train nicely. So the next thing I'm going to do here, first of all, I've got to remember where this screw here goes. This little screw here. It goes somewhere. Oh, I know it. I think it goes on this, which is when the plate goes in, there's a small screw that holds it in place. And that goes on the movement on the other side to hold the whole thing down. So that's the only disadvantage of not doing this right. So this screw here that's short, I may just Loctite it and put it in like this, or maybe I can search for a bigger one. Let's do a little look for a bigger one for a few seconds here. All right, so another coffee break. It's a bit of a pain reassembling some of these because they're very old. Some of them are almost custom made. So it's, I don't think they made a lot of these ball type clocks in the past. So I'm going to dig into my screw collection here to see if I can find a screw that's equivalent to this one right here. I do have other screws other than these, but if I can spot one that's close and I can use it, what I want is a little tiny bit bigger, because this one is stripped. This one back here is stripped, so it's not going to work. So I'm looking for screws that might work. Some of these aren't even screws, I don't think. But some of these are too big, and some of them are too small. See, these screws here might work. I see one right there. So I've got a bunch here that might do the job. So let me just dig into a few of them and see if I can find something that will accommodate that hole that looks like it's a bit stripped. So like something like this. And again, it's the threading of the thing, right? So it's got to be a little bit bigger. It's got to have reasonable threading. It can't be too long or it'll hit that arm on the other side. Although I can shave it down. So if it fits, I can shave it down. That's one that looks a bit too small. The other thing I do sometimes, I just dump all these screws and start hunting, screw hunting. Usually I'm successful doing this. It's a bit of a pain, but it's a painful necessity in watchmaking when you have a screw problem. The other thing I could do is it's held together with two screws, put Loctite on that screw and that'll seal it in on the existing one. I don't want to do that though. I'd rather find a screw that would work. That would, like that one's, no, that won't work. This one here looks close. If you look at the end there, that looks like it's close, but it looks also too long. So if I try that, let me just move everything over here, and it's in this hole here, and I try that, is that going to screw in? That's the question. So let me see. It does seem to screw in, so that's a candidate. So let me see if I can very easily pop that one out again. There we go. So that is a candidate. And I got to keep an eyeball on my original. So sometimes I'll mark that. I think that's what I'll do. I'll mark the original with a red pen. That way I can't mix them up. Let me see if I can grab a red pen. Let me think. There's every color but friggin' red. There we go. There's a red pen. I just want to mark that. That way I know that's the original screw. I don't screw myself. So again, I want to find a screw that's comparable to that. I'm looking in my other screws here, like these ones here, and they look a bit too small. Yeah, they look too small. These ones here, actually, they look too small as well. They're not vintage watch screws, so they're going to be smaller. These ones are fairly hefty. Let me look at the back end of this. They're not. No, they're kind of small as well. I might be able to find one in this group of screws, but let's just not look in there yet. I've got a bunch of, what are these? Elgin miscellaneous pocket watch screws. So these ones here. There's one that looks interesting, that one right there. Looks like it could have some potential. It's all about the threading, right? So if I grab that one, let me go in there with my tweezers here and see if I can very carefully extract that one. That looks good, except it's way too long. So that would have to be filed down if it happens to be the right. But also, I don't like the threading on that one. It looks super fine. The threading looks super fine on that. And the threading on this one is not super fine. So I'm looking at these other Elgin screws to see if there's any others that have a not so fine threading. I think I'm shit out of luck with this. Yeah, those are all fine threading. Just put that one back. This one here had Hope. This is the Hope one, but it also has very fine threading. So let me put this back because it's not going to help me. And there's nothing harder than screw hunting. I'm telling you, for you watchmakers out there, if you've ever done this, you may as well fast forward right now, because it's as I get myself into a frenzy. These ones seem to be the best chance to find the right screw. Like there's one right here, like that one there. The head is very small though, so the thing will that the head might not rest properly. Yeah, this one here looks like the threading is right, but again, the head's pretty small. This one here is, threading is average, but the head is small again. Well, I'm going to go into a bunch of other screws just for a second here, so just bear with me. And I'm going back into my screw haven here. And pull that one out, because that one, like I have more screws here than you can shake a stick at. So somewhere in this massive bunch of screws, it's got to be the right one. And again, I apologize for making you watch all this crap, but too bad. So sad. Makes it too long a video, I think. People get bored. All right, what do we got here? I can see some potentials. This one here is a potential, but it's got the threads again are, yeah, the screw in general is too long. This one here is a potential, but again, the threads are too long. That's a potential. Yeah, but I'd have to file that down if it fit. And again, it's going to go right through the hole. So the head needs to be bigger. So I think these ones here are no good because the heads aren't big enough to fit. So that these are not good. Jeez. How's your patience so far? Now I've got a bucket of screws down here. These are old ones here. Maybe it's old British screws that I'm looking for, right? Now these look interesting. So there's one there that's not right. There's one there that's too long. I know when you find the right one, it's amazing. No, there's nothing in there that I want to try. Let me just close this down here. Go back to the original bucket of screws. Let me put this one back here for a sec. I'm going to keep hunting, and I'm going to turn off the hunting video, okay, for now. All right, son of a mother duck. I found a screw that actually fits perfectly for the threading. There it is there. It's a little small on the head, but the hole on the back end is also small. So there's no problem. So when I screw that in and tighten it down, no issue at all. That works perfectly. So that's a good screw. And I'll take this screw here. I always do this. This is the red one. And I put that into my incredibly crazy used parts bin, just in case for some reason I got to go hunt for that screw again. I don't want to throw that in with the rest of my screws. I did go and do that though, and I spilled a bunch more screws onto the mat here that I now have to put back. So the screw hunting is done. So I've got all of it together with the exception of the escapement. And as I showed you earlier, the watch, see if I can do this properly. If I just put a small wind on it, the train works perfectly. So that's success. Now I just need to get the balance out and deal with that. So I can put the pallet fork in first though. All right, and putting in the pallet fork, I believe it goes fat side down, and the which means it goes like this, in like this. But I've got to have actually, yeah, that's right. It goes like that. There's the world's smallest hole right in the plate for the pallet fork. And I have to make sure that the pivot for the pallet fork doesn't break. There we go. That goes like that, and then there's a cock as opposed to a bridge. And as I've said before, the difference between the cock and the bridge is that the cock has got one arm going out to wherever the part is or the pivot is, and the bridge has two. So this goes in like that, which is probably going to be a bit more than tricky to put in. So let's try this. Like that. That just dropped down. So maybe it's my lucky day today, folks. Yeah, I need my famous 70-10 stick here to put a bit of pressure on the back end of that. so that when I lower it, it lowers properly. So that's it there, and I want to put a little tiny bit of back pressure on this. So to aid in doing this, the first thing I'm going to do is put the screw in. So this, I believe, is the screw. So I'm going to make sure that screw is in, but not tight at all. And let me grab this stick first. Alright, so that's now in place, so it shouldn't pop out. All right. Tighten that up, so that's good. So that's working now, and always check, go back and forth with this to make sure that there's freedom and you've got both of the pivots in there. So, and before I assemble everything, I'm going to take a little bit of this Bergeon 9415, the stuff here. This stuff is gold, Jerry. So this really helps the with the friction. So I'm going to put my stick away again, get that out of the way. And I have 45 minutes before that crazy meeting. So let me get an oiler here. And not the Edmonton Oilers, just a watch oiler. And what I want to do is put the slightest bit of oil of this stuff here on the face of the jewels. I think there's a bit too much on that one, so I'm going to take some Rodico and just see if I can get rid of some of it. Not sure if that'll hurt or not, but there, I'll leave that much on. So that's good there. And this stuff does work with friction. I've seen increased amplitudes like crazy because of it, right? So now, if I wind the watch up, and I just basically wind up the watch, and I'm going to put the Rodico back in here so the stem doesn't fall out. Now when I flick the pallet fork, is it going to go back and forth? Yes, it is. So that's really nice. So you can do that a few times just to move that that 94, I think it's 9415. It's like it's almost like a gel, but it's I guess you could call it a grease, but it's like a gel. And so that goes back and forth like that. So that's good. That's done. And now I just back this off a little bit here. And I want to spin that around. I can put this face down like this. And I don't want to put this down on my mat because it wouldn't be good for it, right? So I want to put it down like that. And then what I want to do is make sure that everything here is properly oiled, because I'll end up putting the face on, and once you put the face on, that's it. You're done. You can't fix the unfixable. So there's the watch there. I just turn off my head. Sorry about the freestanding camera, I call it. There we go. And I know that I did a little bit of oiling here already, but I just want to do a little more. So the first thing I want to oil is the back end of the barrel. Even though I oiled the inside already, this will find its way into the barrel arbor. I also want to tighten all those screws from before. And in a few seconds I'm going to put the cannon pinion. I put some oil on the seconds hand wheel, but I want it to sink in, and I'm going to dab it with the Rodico like that to take off any excess oil. And then these are pivots coming through, right? So I want to make sure that those pivots are oiled. And these are the banking pins, so you don't have to oil the banking pins. So that's all oiled, which is good. I oiled here, but I can put a little bit of grease, like B5 grease, right in here, basically along here. I don't need it on the outside like that. I'll clean that up in a second. I need it on the inside. And some people, not all watchmakers, would oil this as well, so I can put a little bit of oil on these too. And it'll spread. As this watch is turned, used, wound, whatever, that'll all spread. So that's good there. I believe I can fly. I believe this is tight, so I don't have any issues with this gear here. And I need to, when I end up putting the stem back, I'll tighten that stem. I don't know what was here, if anything. So actually that's just a screw coming through. So that's nothing. So there's nothing here, just the screw for the plate. The other screw for the plate is underneath here, and it is perfect, so there's no issue there at all. So I'd like to put the cannon pinion back down, and later on I can just drop the minute wheel down. So this should just push down like that. Yeah, so that's down nicely. And that's in winding position here. So I think if I were to pull it out, I can't remember here, pull it out, push it in, one of them puts it in setting position. I know that if this goes forward, once I push the rod in, then that sets it. So if I take that rod, there's a hole for the rod. There it is there. The rod pushes in right there, but I'll just wrap this around the stem again so I don't lose that. But this is the rod here, and that pushes down on this, which moves this forward. And then when I move that forward, this turns this wheel, which turns the minute wheel, which turns the other wheel. So it's all good. So I'm not going to do that right now because I want to make sure this thing ticks. So back to the balance. All right, now for the scariest part of watchmaking, and that's putting the balance back in. I've got to do this very carefully. And I like to do it from, I want to put it in from the other side. Let me see if I can grab this differently here. And this is just a different kind of balance than what I'm used to. But I want to put it in this way and then rotate it in. So I think the balance is going to have to go under that wheel. So I'm not sure how this is going to look visually, but like that. It looked like the balance already flipped to the wrong side. So I'm going to take that out. I'm actually going to try it from this side. This is just darn tricky, that's all. And then when you do it, you're never sure whether it's in or not. And this is like a very special kind of pocket watch. So this is going to be, you don't want to put too much pressure down. And here I've got the spring riding over the gear side. Yeah, and I can see that the jewel's on the wrong side of the pallet fork. So now I've got to somehow lift this up if I can. And get that jewel to the other side of the pallet fork. This is going to be painful, I can tell. Yeah, this is going to be painful. I need to slide the hairspring up through the in the gap right now, so I'm not sure if that's the thing is with this, you can't get your finger in here to move it around, not like a pocket watch, so it's extremely painful. Something screwed up here. But screwed up or not, I'm going to put the screw in here and then see if I can fix this. Alright, we've got success, we've got ticking. I'm not sure how well it'll work, but it's working, which is good. And I'm not sure how much power I have in that mainspring, but the good news is it is ticking. And it was the mainspring, the hairspring actually touching on one arm of this, so I needed to do an adjustment of the hairspring itself, and you can do that with tweezers, and you twist at an angle to make it rise up on one side. So I did a little tiny bit of that to get it going again. So there we go, it's running. I'm just going to let this run for a while and see how long it lasts and see how much amplitude I end up getting out of this. So I'm not expecting a lot, but I'm expecting a little. So I'm going to put this on this particular stand so I know that I've got some control over it. And this is the Afghana stand. I'm killing myself. And I'm not going to bother completely assembling this until I know it's going to run for a while. So I'll see you later. That's this video, and let's just make the video and go from there. But look at it, it's ticking nicely, starting to gain a little bit of amplitude, and we'll see how well it works in about an hour. Thanks for watching. I'm JD. Alright, thanks for watching the video. I'm JD, and I hope you enjoyed this little adventure. It was an interesting assembly, but I got it going. Seems to be running okay. I don't know what kind of amplitude I'm going to get for this. I kept the old mainspring in. I'm going to talk to the owner and figure out what he wants to do. It looks okay right now. It's running fairly well, and we'll just see if it's going to continue. It's cleaned. It just depends. If he wants more amplitude, I could procure a new mainspring and then disassemble this part of the watch here and put in the new mainspring and see where we go. It's up to him. So that's it. I'm JD. Thanks for watching, and I'll reassemble this at a later time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.